evening, ladies and gentlemen, friends of science. Today we are starting a new season of scientific evenings here at Zemono, and our first speaker will be Professor Dane Bićanić. And I would like to take this opportunity to say a few words to introduce our speaker. Dane Bićanić is a professor of physics at the University of Wageningen in the Netherlands, where he started to work in 1980 after a quite, I would say, intensive and interesting academic career. He was born in Zagreb, where he also graduated from the University of Zagreb in the field of physics. And after that, he left for Norfolk, Virginia, in the United States, where he obtained his master's degree, to continue with the doctoral studies at the Catholic University of Nijmegen in the Netherlands. He completed his PhD studies in 1978 with the dissertation on generation of tunable sidebands in the terahertz region. And for this purpose, he designed and constructed a laser based on the hydrocyanic acid vapors, which was also put in operation with the assistance of his colleagues. And actually, he pushed the limits of laser spectroscopy into the terahertz region for the first time. This work with lasers has marked his future, I would say, scientific career, because after joining, at that time, Agriculture University of Wageningen, he shifted completely into the field of agriculture, environmental science, as well as food science. And for this purpose, he, of course, applied the techniques that he was developed, techniques from the field of optothermal spectroscopy, of course, all based on the unique lasers that were available in his laboratory that he constructed together with his friends. He left an important impact into the field of photothermal spectroscopy, not only by his pioneering work in this field, but also by organizing the International Symposium on Photothermal, Photoacoustic and Photothermal Phenomena in Dorwert in 1991, where he managed to gather, I would say, the most brilliant scientists, young scientists from the East that until that time didn't have the passport and password to this community. And since then, the session on agricultural and food applications has been on the program of this conference for all the coming years. I should not forget to mention that in addition to enthusiasm and highly dynamic approach that Dado is showing, Dado, that's how friends we are calling him, what he's showing in the laboratory, he's also very dynamic and innovative in when it comes to teaching to the students. And for this, in 2008, if I'm not mistaken, he was awarded the Teacher of the Year award by the students of the University of Wageningen. As it's usually the case, of course, our speakers will give us an overview of the research that they have done, and this will also be the case with Professor Dane Bićanić, who will speak on optothermal spectroscopies and their application in environmental and food science. So, Dado, please, the floor is yours.
This is already connected.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mladen, for these nice words. I'm really happy to be here. And I hope that when you go home tonight that you will know something about this topic. It's unusual. I mean, I must admit that I myself didn't know until 1986 what it is all about. It's also difficult for such a crowd which is heterogeneous. If you know nothing about this, I had to invest quite some time to plan that everybody could follow. So the name of the title is given here. This is, I have to get used to this stuff. This is our building. I'm from the Department of Biophysics. I used to be agrotechnology, first then meteorology, then physics. Now we have biophysics. And this is our building with an Avogadro number of bicycles, as you can see. And coming from universities such as Wageningen, we are obliged, well, obliged is too strong, but it's always nice to put down what we do. I'm not reading every single line, you can do it yourself, but these are the 4 domains or four fields where we are strong. Actually, we have no competitors in Holland because we are the only university where this food science and agriculture is being practiced. Now, since recently, I think 3 or 4 years ago, there has been a merging of 3 institutions. Dutch government pays for 9 institutes, professional institutes in Wageningen. There is a polytechnic, that is Van Gaal Larenstein, and there is Wageningen University where I come from. But ministers have been thinking that merging these 3 units into one would help to bring Wageningen to the world top. And I think they're on a good way. We are not always happy. We, I mean, university, is not always happy with a dictate which is imposed by others, but for the time being, it goes well. You can see these are the number of BS students. There are more than 100, from 100 countries, people coming to study. And the turnover of the university only is 304 million euros. From the whole organization, 750, if I'm not mistaken. And they're always proud. Every year they report we have more and more students. Now, I'm sure a community like this would be interesting to know where the people are coming from. Now, here you can see a large majority is from Holland, of course, but we have people from almost everywhere. And what is really amazing, I saw this slide recently. Look at this, the increase in the number of PhD theses. That's interesting. I don't know how is it in Slovenia, but it used to be, look here in the year 2009, 60, that is about 10 PhD theses per year. And look at the figures now, 250 theses, PhD theses per year. You can say, you can almost say it's really much. Huh? Okay, now we go. Just before I came to optotermal spectroscopy, I have to tell you then what is spectroscopy in simple words. And I would say, I looked it up in the dictionary and I found that's nothing but interaction between energy and matter. At least this is one of the definitions. And I could find that there are 2 major categories. The first one studies the photons that were transmitted through the material. And the absorbance is then related to percentage transmission via this relation A is logarithm, minus logarithm T. And the second class of spectroscopy is concerned with the reflecting of scattered light. But what is important here to recognize is that, as you can see, a detection of photons that underwent absorption is precluded in these schemes. Now, this is this view that everybody does know these schemes. That is the transmission, and it is reflection and scattering. So, what are the shortcomings of these schemes? When you are dealing with a weak transmission, then the problem is that the power that is coming outside the cell is almost as big as the incident power. So when you talk about 1 ppm or less, there is hardly unlikely that you will ever be capable of measuring the difference. And that cannot be helped, this evil, by increasing the power of the incident source, because you will always deal with the difference of 2 reasonably strong signals from compared magnitude. The same thing holds when you have very opaque samples, very thick samples, then you will never get out on the other side of your cell. So you can wait as long as you want, but if the optical absorption is strong, transmission will be 0. So that is one drawback of transmission spectroscopy. Second, when you have problems with the light scattering, or you have materials that are difficult to study otherwise, like suspensions, smears, gels, powders, diffusely reflective specimens, that's always quite difficult. Now, what is then optothermal spectroscopy? What do we understand as optothermal spectroscopy? Now, this is a newly developed class of techniques that measure exactly internal heating of the sample. That's what the other two techniques are lacking. This technique is providing possibility to study absorption directly, and all the other things that we see were indirectly. Is it okay, the tempo, or should I? Okay. So, as I said, they measure internal heating of the sample. And now to the principle of optothermal spectroscopy. You have normally a pulsed or continuous modulated source of radiation. Radiation is selectively chosen. Thus you have a sample and radiation. There should be a match. There's sort of resonance. And the heat of radiation is absorbed by the sample, and in absence of radiation emission, thus we have radiation-less mechanism, the heat of the absorbed energy is converted into heat. This heat generates various effects then in the sample itself, or in the fluid of contact medium that is in a medium that is in contact with this sample that we are studying. And once this is happening, then various optothermal schemes, we call them, are then used to probe this, what has happened with the sample. You will see now soon one simple case. So we are talking about now optothermal effects. What are these? Now here is just, no, sorry, this is not a good one. This one is a good one. You have modulated or pulse excitation. It should not be only visible radiation, can be anything. And then this is the yellow block is a sample. This sample will, for example, a simple case, the sample will absorb the heat and it will deform. So let's say, not to use too much time, this will bulge. And that is this effect. Sample absorbs the radiation, it heats, it changes the form, deforms. And if you then shine, let's say, the other beam, probe beam, on this sample, because of the curvature here or any deformation, the beam will deflect it in a different way than it was when there is no absorption. You can have this other things. Mladen is expert for this. When, as you know, in deserts you have this fata morgana, what is called. There you have this the sun energy falling on the ground. The ground gets warm. You get a convective transport of heat from the ground upwards. And then we know that every medium is characterized by its own refractive index. Index of refraction is also called index lambda. And now it's so that the index lambda, refractive index, is the function of the temperature. So that means if you move, if you move from here upwards, you will find on different distances from your soil, from the ground level, you will find different temperatures, thus different refractive index. And then when you come with another laser that has a wavelength that is not absorbed by this sample, it will probe here refractive index which is different than others, and it will be reflected. It is a mirage, what they call it. Fata Morgana, the same. But okay, the nicest one is, that's the one that we started with our work. This is the beginning of optotermal science in 1881 from Alexander Graham Bell, the same guy who invented the telephones. This was what happened in London. You have here a window of his attic. The sunlight is coming in, is reflected here by some mirror. It goes through a wheel of the Shivacha machina, that is a sewing machine, I don't know how it's called in English. And so the beam is interrupted periodically, and Mr. Bell, he was son of a doctor, stethoscope, and in the stethoscope is a vessel, and in the vessel he was using all kinds of samples. It's beautiful if you read these articles from 1881, that there were samples he described, I have heard such a sound, I had to step backward. But what is happening? During his life, this phenomenon was not explained. He has heard the sound, or not. If you have here silk or something which is white, he heard nothing. If you had, for example, carbon black, this the, what is it called, these pills that you use for your stomach if you have diarrhea. If you put this in the cell, then he heard a very large signal, carbon black powder. So obviously, that was just before quantum mechanics. There is some process which leads to generation of sound upon interaction of modulated light beam with the sample. And they call this effect photoacoustics. Some people call it optoacoustics. And as I said, he died without realizing that he was discovering something very important. Now, he was studying all kinds of samples, like powders, gels, smears. And we know now that if the sample absorbs, if you have something in this vessel, and the sample absorbs the radiation, then the generated heat diffuses from the sample upwards and comes in the vessel, this closed, sealed. And of course, if you modulate this radiation with some number of hertz, then you are generating sound. Is this strange or not? Not, of course not, because you have a certain amount of gas inside the vessels. There is some, for a given volume and for a given number of molecules, there is a certain pressure. And if you shine the laser light or sunlight on it, the temperature will go up. And in the closed, sealed cell, the pressure will goes up. And the pressure raise is this what you hear, the sound that Bell has perceived. And if you modulate it, at, let's say, 25 hertz, then you will hear sound of 25 hertz. If you modulate it at 500 hertz, you will hear a sound of 500 hertz. And the intensity of this sound will be a function of sample, this absorption, or if you want, concentration. Okay? Bell, in his experiments, he has concluded something very important, that the pressure, the intensity of the sound is, I call it S, is directly proportional, listen to this, directly proportional to the incident power, to the concentration and the absorption coefficient. But not every sample has the same absorbance. And of course, the first thing that you want to do with this is, if it's like this, then we can use this method to measure the concentration of some species. See this? Concentration, this is signal, that is what we hear, proportional to power, to sample, and to the concentration. Thus, if I have very high power, P, then I could measure very low concentrations, C. That was the idea. And of course, when he died, there were no lasers, but everybody started to be interested then in using this technique for measuring on low concentration of gases. Oops. What are advantages of this method, before I go into details? First of all, you can study the samples of any kind. Practically any morphology will do. And the beautiful thing is, I don't know whether you realize it by now without me telling you, you see that here is one universal detector, that's your ear. Whether I shine UV light over radio waves or whatever, I am not interested in the amount of power that is coming out of my cell, and I'm not interested to detect radiation that has been reflected or scattered. So this is a big advantage. And this, you use microphone or your ear in that case as a universal detector. And that's an enormous advantage, of course, for experimentalists. Now, here is once again a scheme of what happens in generation of photoacoustic signal. You have laser radiation which is matched, you have excitation, you have heating, then you have acoustic wave because the pressure goes up, and then you detect it with a microphone. So that was in 1881. What do we need for our photoacoustic detection anno 2012? You need intense, stable radiation cells. You need this chopper, modulator. You need something which was sort of cell. Cell is the device in which you accommodate your sample. And you need the detector. That means something instead of your ear. And what you want is, of course, a large dynamic range. Oops. Okay, so let's now see what can we do with this. We were very happy that this exists, but now what can we do? I told you, first you need a source. Otherwise you have a pistol with bullets, but you won't hurt anybody. You need a sample that you want to study and source that provides a good wavelength for us. Now this is from infrared. Here you see from 1 to 15 micron how does the spectrum looks like. Here are some gases of interest for environmental monitoring and for agriculture. And here are lasers that were radiating in this region. So you can see here that if you want to study a molecule such as CH4, which absorbs somewhere by 4 microns, you have nothing on CO2 laser because there is no spectral overlap. Okay? Now, this is how does the modern photoacoustic system looks like. Instead of zoom, we have now laser. This is the cell, one of the cells. There are millions of ways you can construct the cell. And it is ingenuity of particular experimentalists to design something which is super sensitive. And I have a feeling that it's a never-ending story. Every 1 month somebody comes with something new, better. And so such a cell, what form does it have to have? This is one of these, and you have a microphone and, of course, the computer. This is how the cell looks like from inside. Here is laser radiation coming in. I will explain later why is this at some distance from the source. And here is a microphone. It's also a question where to put it. We thought at first it makes no difference. It will always work. It works. But there's a big difference between super working and less good working. What also almost everybody that works in monitoring in agriculture or in environmental physics, science, he wants to do it online with a flow in a flow-through mode. Because you have to put here somewhere ports, and these ports has to be carefully selected so that you don't get signal that comes from the noise. Just imagine if you would be a molecule and you sit here inside, and suddenly I open the valve and there comes this gas because you want to flow it, and this flow generates by itself acoustic noise. And it will, of course, limit the sensitivity of your system. Now, this cell, which I show you, are all, they can be any shape and any form, and there's one big difference. You have this resonant cell and the non-resonant cell. Non-resonant cell would be, let's say, something. I just take something like this, and I send it through, and this is a cell which doesn't amplify the sound which has been generated. But you have also resonant cells in which the dimensions and the diameters are selected in such a way that the cell behaves like an organ pipe. So you get a sort of amplification of your acoustic signal. Most people, we used resonant cells. This is the one that is used by our PhD student, Franz Harre. He now has an extremely good laboratory. You see that this here is the body, of course. This is the opening channel. You should think of something like 8 millimeters. It's resonant. Somebody has calculated what must be the length of this and diameter of this pipe, such that you get resonance. You get a standing wave with a maximum here on this. Here is a microphone where you will detect your signal. And here you see these we call buffers. And here's also another buffer. This is a window. And the laser comes from this side, goes through the window. Hopefully you don't get any absorption there, because if you get absorption in the window, this is also heat, and this heat also travels to the pipe, and it contributes to your signal. So you don't want this. Oh, this is banana cell in Wageningen. I don't want to do this. This is to show you what is the effect of noise. There's here on the right, you can see the signal, electrical signal from the microphone that measures cell through which the gas mixture is flowing. And here is the flow in cubic centimeters per minute. And you see that the system behaves very nicely until you come suddenly to 600 cubic centimeter per minute. That is something happened there, and then suddenly noise gets much bigger. So you should stay out of this regime. Now, this is also something interesting. I would be happy to talk to somebody who has understanding of adsorption. We were annoyed by ammonia. There was a time in Holland that everybody wants to know what is it now with acid rain? Is it really serious or not? And we were supposed to measure ammonia photoacoustically. And then you can see this comes from US actually, but we had similar results. The problem was which material we have to use to coat our cell from inside to prevent adsorption. And you can see that ammonia ammonia on stainless steel is 99 minutes you have to wait until you get sort of stabilization. And this is of course very bad because the cell online measurements are not possible. And what you also get is this memory effects, which you don't like. Teflon was then the best, or paraffin. Now, in such a photoacoustic cell, you always have detector. The detector is a microphone. These are expensive microphones, but you have the one that people with a bad hearing are using for €1.50, and they perform very well as well. This is the electrode microphone of a capacitive microphone where one membrane is fixed and the other membrane is moving, so you change capacity. And these are really very sensitive, but recently somebody in Suomi, Finland, he came to the idea to use optical microphone. Now you would wonder what is optical microphone. These are much more sensitive. The optical microphone detects movement of an elastic membrane and detects it by interferometry. Look here, I have here a picture. This is then the cell. Here is the radiation coming in, and this is the interferometer. And the movement of this cantilever due to absorption gives us 10 times more diffraction than standard microphone. This is again gain for us that work with this. Factor 10 is not nothing. Now I have to tell you a few examples of what we did, and I want to first say a few measurements in a gas phase, stress in plants, and atmospheric pollution. I can only be very brief, of course, because of time. We can state that the effect of the stress on plants varies from impeded growth to death. And there are abiotic and biotic stress. You can see environmental stress, as they call them, is drought, heat, submergence on the water, coldness, salinity, air pollution, and so forth. And biotic stress concerns exclusively the diseases, pathological situation. So what was done in Holland together with many other labs is stress studies with carbon dioxide laser. You will see now fermentation by fruit, ethanol, acetaldehyde, emission from a single orchid flower. Just imagine Holland earns a lot of money by transporting orchidea from Rotterdam to Argentina, for example. And they are interested in minimizing the losses. And if you see what all can induce losses, then you will understand that such a photoacoustic monitor that measures ethylene is a fantastic help. Then what is also interesting, using this photoacoustic detection to monitor effect of the stress on people, like lying on the beach under UV light, what does this do to you? You will see some pictures, and you cannot imagine who in God's name is interested in respiration of one ant from Nigeria. But there are people who are. Thus we have managed with this system to monitor breathing pattern, CO2 emission of one single, what is it called? Mrav, kaj je to na slovenski? Ant. Yeah. One single ant, you can monitor, it's fantastic. Same as emission of ethylene by a smallest butterfly in Europe, Frankinella occidentalis, when he flies, and he's only 1.5 millimeters, and I don't know what it weighs, but almost nothing, and even this you can monitor online. Okay, Ethylene is, of course, a stress hormone, as I said, and is involved in a variety of psychological aspects, from germination to death. This is the laser that Mladen was using when he was in our lab, and us. CO2 lasers are not anymore so popular. You should imagine a good CO2 laser is 1 meter long. We constructed those by ourselves. And this is a step-tunable laser. That means it emits radiation, strong radiation, and we need that from 9 to 11 micron. But it's like FM radio. Radio Ljubljana, Radio Maribor, Radio Tržić, and so on. This, and every position is one line, which means in total 95 or 96 lines. And then you must look, and so that's fine. But what now? You have this tool, source, with discrete lines, 1, 2, 3, equidistant spaced. And now you want to use this pistol of the cannon, if you want. This gives something like 60 watts sometimes. We had one of 25. And this is the absorption spectrum of ethylene at CO2 laser wavelength. I told you there must be this spectral coincidence between the bullet and the sample. You are the sample, Ivo. I shoot at you, and I can have here a cannon of 150 watts, but I won't hurt you if you don't fit in one of these. If you have an absorption spectrum that doesn't correspond to the spectrum of my bullets, then you can sit here and say, Dado, goodbye, I don't feel it. So, therefore, this is the spectrum, and you can see that, one line, and that is this one, this logarithmic scale, that is a 10.something, 10.5 microns. This is this line at which coincidence with the CO2 laser is good. And we use this line to detect concentration up to 0.1 ppb online, without interferences. One of my PhD students, you must imagine there's a lot of interest. This offers a lot of possibility. But who dares from the university to start such a business that you said, make this in large numbers for consumers? Now, there was one graduate student who did it, and he invested 10 years, but now he has 10 people working for him. But it took 10 years to me and to other colleagues to convince the agriculture sector, buy this, it's worth buying it. Everybody uses gas chromatography, and they say, yeah, it's all nice and so on, but now it goes. And so you can see he has something that goes to 0.3 ppb, and with a time resolution of 5 seconds. It's used in, this is another ethylene detector for the greenhouses and for the modified climate research. This is also what I told you about detecting ethylene with CO2 laser for to study effect of UV radiation on your body and to check how do the sunscreen work. This is the same guy, Franz Harre, who was a graduate student of us one day. And you can see that he is exposed to UV light. And you can see after you turn the light on, then without protection cream, you see the peak of ethylene already after 0.3 hours, 20 minutes, you reach the peak. And if you put the SP factor 20 cream, you can see that there is some working. So there's an interest from the cosmetic industry in this kind of research to see whether this can be developed at the moment. This is something we are very proud of, but that was also in the time of Mladen. For most people, it will be difficult to understand it, so I will keep it really short. We were facing, ammonia was always a big problem in Holland. We have so many farmers, too many cows, too many bicycles, but ammonia is a problem. And then we got money from Environmental Research Ministry to measure selectively ammonia at the level of 1 ppb. And we use this infrared system. And I still think, hopefully nobody will hear me, but that all the other detectors are not working good enough, because in a normal atmosphere, 300 ppm of CO2 gives the same absorption as 1 ppb ammonia, or gives the same absorption as relative humidity of water on the order of 75%. If you don't have some selective device that suppresses one of these three, you are measuring all your three together. So you cannot say, I have measured ammonia. And this was an attempt that we had to selectively detect ammonia. How? I would put, he's ammoniac, my wife is CO2, and they both sit on my neck. And now we do apply an electric field. And if you have a dipole moment, which is not zero, you will go left or right. But in other words, my wife will go left, he will stay intact where he is, and I'm ammonia, I will go to the right. In this way, you actively separate the components in three parasites in 3 times 1 instead of 1 times 3. And then if you have luck with that you have a laser line that matches ammonia, you can measure it. And we had it. This is the ammonia of something like outside the pollution level. The technique we called impasse, because you have then two modulation. One is electric field, another one is photoacoustics. And there's only the molecules that absorb infrared radiation and have dipole moment will produce the signal. Now, this was also interesting with, I told you we had CO2 laser that emits in 9 to 10 micron, and we had CO laser that was difficult to make. It was something like 7, now 2.5 meters, but it gives 100 milliwatts at most, and you need for this work a lot of power. And what we did study with this was submergence of rice to find out what makes difference between submergence tolerant rice and submergence intolerant. What is the difference? Nobody has apparently explained this. Submergence means you put it underwater. We study anoxia. We also wanted to study quality of seeds and what is the effect of chilling under excessive light. I could put more of the topics, but it's not important. Look, what is now so special with the CO laser? Again, we need coincidence between my pistol and my victims. Victims are apples and insects and rice. And bullets is CO laser. As you see, these red lines are CO2 laser lines. Again, discrete, but this time between 5 and 7 microns. And you can, it's called step tunable. And these black lines, this absorption spectrum of ethane, C2H6, in the same region. So you see that this is useless, reasonably good match, not bad. You would prefer this one because absorption is strong, and so that's how it goes. And just because of this coincidence between the spectral overlap, we could do some interesting work. This was done with somebody from Bristol and the people from Yogyakarta. We have a lot of collaboration with Indonesia and with Nijmegen. This is done the setup, and we simulated this here in this glass vessel is rice. And we could create any conditions that you want, from anoxia to any other situation that you want, as far as oxygen is concerned. And the most important is this here. The most important is that submerged rice produces increased amounts of ethane during submergence. Nobody has measured this before. And with this sensitive system, this was possible. Look now when you see the figures for the flow rate. Here we are talking about ethane emission rates on the order of, let's say, 10 nanoliter per gram per hour online. Now, this is also important for the people that in India and in East also Asia. It is now determined that irregardless of the duration and the onset of submersion, tolerant rice produces always less ethane than intolerant. And that is interesting conclusion. Yeah, these are the pictures. I don't want to bore you too much, but here is this. You see, this is the intolerant, this is tolerant, and you see, independently of exposure, submergence period, these peaks on this side are always bigger than this one. Now, and of course, interesting that the numbers that I just show you that do agree with what you see visually, increased leaf damage and decreasing survival scores, because if submergence takes too long, the plant will die. Now, this is also something that is now ongoing in Wageningen. The post-harvest crops is very large worldwide. You see 20 to 30%. So optimization of storage condition is needed. And in a modified climate atmosphere, in Holland they are very good in this, you grow plants under elevated CO2 and lower oxygen, which lowers metabolism and delays ripening. So you can sort of manipulate. I want my plants to be, fruit to be ripe next week. This is then the idea. They call it dynamic fruit storage system to reduce harvest losses. And now here is one example. These good apples grown in Wageningen. And you see here that you measure acetaldehyde or ethanol. In other words, you keep this controlled. That's what you want. These are selective monitors to keep this concentration on a proper value. And you see that the critical point for apples is by something like 1, so many percentage oxygen, then the situation does become dangerous, and you don't want to come so far. So you have photoacoustic monitor that will warn you when is that bad. This is a part of a European project that we had. Mladen was also involved in Holland. If you see our seeds, they are expensive. Maybe some of you are from farmer origin. You would collapse if you know 1 kilo of seeds, how much money that costs. But the idea is there any other method to quickly say this seed is good, yes or no? Because now what happens in Holland is they come from Vietnam, they are sown. Some people, there's a team, special trained people who come and get them and make a table. And at the end, but this is time consuming, you don't want it. You like to have a system where you can monitor other volatiles coming from these seeds, and that is so. We have this now. Yeah, this is also something. Not only agriculture people are interested in this kind of work. Military people are interested, especially after this attack at Tokyo's subway. Somebody came to the idea, oh, why should I not make such a universal portable detector for nerve gases? And this has been, you see, I'm not going to read them all, but look. Oops, sorry. You can see here all kinds of gases which are classified as nerve gases, dangerous. And such a detector is also available. Now, then is what is interesting, new developments. I mean, the CO laser and CO2 laser, they are very big and very clumsy. And now we learn how to work with this. But who wants a system which is longer than this table? And it requires cryogenic temperatures. If you want to get more lines, you have to go down to minus 196 degrees or so. So fortunately, the new developments, people come with quantum cascade lasers. I never worked with them, but I went to see in Nijmegen and in Utrecht how this looks like. Beautiful. And I only don't know how they perform as photoacoustic detectors at very low concentration. But here somebody has used in Utrecht quantum cascade laser to detect NO lines. And NO lines in infrared. Why was that? Because of asthma. In Holland, a lot of people have asthma. And now they are talking about screening of the people. Apparently, I know too little about it, but I will tell you that it is so that when somebody has asthma attack, then he produces large quantities of NO. And see, this is inverse. That is when there's no need for any treatment. There's unobstructed passage. This is when somebody has problems. And after you do some treatment, you see how this collapses. So they are thinking about making, together with Oklahoma University, portable detector for schools so that you can detect whether somebody is an asthma patient already in early childhood to prevent. Why would you be too late? Now, this is ammonia. Now, this is again something very expensive. It's called OPO. It's again a tunable, very modern tunable source of radiation between 3 and 4.5 microns. In these days, the university have no money to buy this, but with this system, we detected, for example, Lasius niger. That is an ant from a desert. Somebody brought it, smuggled in the plane. And you can see that this is a regular pattern of CO2 breathing in the mouth through of a single ant. For those who are maybe involved in environmental sciences, perhaps this is also interesting. We were interested to find out, can you use photoacoustic detection at elevated temperatures? Because all this work, what I was now explaining so far, is work done at room temperature. And what we did is somebody had at soil science such equipment for total organic carbon in soil water. And there was a regular CO2 detector. And we connected this in a series with our detector and to find out which performance is better. And it was comparable. But it's just proof that the system works also at higher temperature. And the higher temperature here was for inorganic carbon, 150 degrees, and 900 for organic carbon. You would think, wow, microphone will explode, but it doesn't. Now, this is also beautiful, but I better go to even more. This. Studies of strongly absorbing and opaque condensed phase sample. So far we have been talking about gases, but how about other sort of samples? And this, just imagine this is experiment very similar to what Bell did in the beginning. This is a box, there's air, there's a window, the chamber is sealed, because here is atmospheric pressure. A laser comes in, falls on the sample is heated, here's the modulator, chopper, there's heating, cold, heating, cold, heating, cold. The surface is breathing and you get pressure up, pressure down, there's oscillation. And then here in the channel, there's a corridor, and you listen, oh, I hear the sound. The same as Bell did, but now we can quantify that. What is happening? This will take, I'm afraid, some time, but you are all smart. This is the same what I just showed. This is the sample. This is the gas. And what happens? This is a window. Radiation comes in, and now look. The optical radiation comes from the air into the sample, and the sample says, oh, where are you going? Absorption takes place. And that is this, we can say, the wave, the optical excitation beam is attenuated as it penetrates through the sample, and at some depth, which is, we call it 1 over beta, that's where 11% of the total intensity is still over. All this is heated. All this region from here, the surface, to some depth is heated because of absorption. And now you can consider every point in this sample is a source of thermal wave. This optical wave has passed out, he has done completely his function, and the thermal wave has been generated. So then thermal wave is then you're traveling, is traveling from here by diffusion upwards. And microphone is here. And now I told you, in these techniques you need a chopper. And by using the chopper, you will determine which part of this heated zone, this is all heated, I told you, because the optical penetration goes so far, and this all diffuses, but what will reach the microphone? You have the keys for that in your own hands. If you modulate very quickly, this, for example, 275 Hertz, then only the superficial layer can escape during one chopping period, and contribute to the microphone. And the microphone will tell you thank you, and it will produce a signal. But even when all this is heated, and you have high modulation frequency, simply because of the period of oscillation, only the superficial layer can escape. If you low down the frequency and you chop it 1 hertz or 0.1 hertz or whatever, then there is enough time for all this area which is heated to escape within one period. This you get information about depth. And this makes also the basis for the depth sampling of absorption features in the solid state samples. Of course, you can imagine where we were interested. Oh, I skipped one. Oops, no. Yeah. So this is then our photoacoustic sample for research on solid phase sample. Very briefly, a laser, green beam, nothing special, mirror, and here you come. This is the photoacoustic cell. It's a little bit more complex than the one from Bell, and it does its work. How does it look like if we go into the circle? Then I'm coming here. This is the green beam, laser light. And look, this is the chamber. See, this yellow is the window. There's the radiation comes through the window. Window says, pass through, I'm not absorbing. Comes into this red sector, that is tomato puree. This gets heated. It heats the space, pressure oscillation, and microphone is here in this channel, and then you get the signal. Now, just to tell you how good this was, this method, we used this photoacoustic method, is it then, with Svetlana Lutaroti from Zagreb to study margarines. And then the beautiful thing here is, this, on the right, on the X scale, now here I have to be, this is the total carotenoid content for margarine. These are, the numbers are all different brands in Holland and in Germany. And you can see that to make such a plot, you don't need to do HPLC studies. What we did is only once I had to ask, for example, Rada, if you're a chemist, I gave you 20 margarines and said, please make for me analysis how much total carotenoid content in each of these samples. You give it to me, then I have, let's say, the calibration curve, and I don't need to do this anymore again. So it's enormous savings. We study all these samples in one afternoon. Because it's not necessary. What you see here is this photoacoustic signal. There's this sound as a function of the total carotenoid content. And this is, of course, we had a project with the US, with Harvest Plus, and Venezuela Institute of Potato Research, and this is what you see here is a total carotenoid content measured photoacoustically from something like 50 different sorts of flour. This is from the corn flour, and you see the range goes from 2 milligram to 30. And here we did the same for sweet potatoes flours because they are now in, especially the new sorts from Venezuela and from Peru and Ecuador. We show that you can use photoacoustic technique to determine total carotenoid content of powders, of flours, without losing too much time. There is no HPLC analysis. Only once you have to do it, and once and never again. If you don't change during calibration your modulation frequency and your power, then one single calibration is enough for the measurements. Let's see what else is here. Yeah, and this is something that we are still trying. People now they are very much interested in it. What is the carotenoid? What is the concentration of lycopene? You know this red pigment in tomato as a function of depth in the skin. And we are trying to do this trick that I show you with changing the modulation frequency to walk slowly from the surface through the skin. The skin is 175 micron, and to find where is more lycopene than others. It's not so easy, but it goes. Now, and I think this will be 5 more minutes. 3. Okay. Okay, good. Then we came to the second detector, and unfortunately, yeah, it's pity that they cannot take longer, maybe another time. This is called optothermal window, and optothermal window is something that we invented together with people from Sweden. This detection scheme is also optothermal method, and it's suitable for studies of purees and for fluids and for smears and gels and so on. Look what we did. First, how does it work? What is this optothermal window? It's now you already specialist, so you must understand it. What is it? You take a sapphire plate, thin, something like 250 micron, and you put on mayonnaise or tomato, puff. You don't have to worry about how much. Put it half a kilo or put it in small air, it's of no relevance. And then here you have again the laser, which is green light. We're always interested in carotenoids. So the carotenoid lights come here, this chopper, it's reflecting upwards. And guess what's happened? The light, excitation light, goes through the window. It reaches the sample, and in the sample, the absorption starts. So as you penetrate in the sample, the intensity of the incident beam is slower and smaller. So we get the same situation as in photoacoustics. This is heated, and then the heat escapes from this heated region back to the window. And I forgot to say something very important. Window is made of the material. This was zinc selenide and sapphire that expands linearly when it gets heated. So if this is the length of the window, when it's heated, it does this. And when it's cold, it contracts. So you get this. And this beautiful idea here to not detect this, you put here a ring from piezo material, which will detect the movements in a radial direction and will produce a signal. So what do we get? Hubs here, excitation, absorption, diffusion, elongation, sort of earthquake, and the ring will say, ooh, something is happening up there, and it will produce a signal. So at the end you get electrical signal on the microphone, which has to do something with the concentration of the substance that you have here. If there is no absorption, there will be no diffusion, no deformation. You won't believe it. It's also such a simple system, works better than photoacoustics. Now, just a few more slides to show you how it looks like. This is then the system on the table, laser, chopper, some kind of mirror to turn the beam upwards. And inside this is the optothermal window. Hey, an optothermal window looks like this. Yeah, this is all. In reality, you should think this is a 10 Dutch cents, something like 8 millimeter, no more, 12 millimeter, 15 millimeter. And this is all. You put this through such an opening, and then we did it, and what you get is analysis. That, of course, we first did that, and we were extremely pleased. Again, you need one time to calibrate your system using spectrophotometry or HPLC, and that's it. So everybody who comes to watch our lab says, that is impossible. How can you measure all these points in one afternoon? And not once, but let's say every point is something like, I'm going to see 5 of 6 measurements. But it's so quickly, because you put in, clean it, and it reproduces. You should read our papers. We still cannot believe that it's so good. And then, of course, we also did it with mangoes, because we have a project with Indonesia. And this was with mango homogenates. This also, you would think, can we measure beta-carotene content? We did. Look, also low and high equally well. This was just to see, are we on a good way? Somebody says, you can sell us nonsense, but prove with other technique that you are doing a good work. So we use a Raman signal, Raman technique with the same samples, and you see overlap is not bad. And then there are also people who says, why don't you use colorimeter? There's the devices that they're cheap, and they measure color of the object. And we did it. And then you get also some dependence. This was a regression data, and you can see people are always interested in a detection limit. This is enough for practice applications in Asia and in Holland. And also for this technique is important. The more power you have, the lower concentration you can measure. And most recently, I don't know whether there are people here who are good in diamonds, but apparently zinc selenide is not so, sapphire is not the best material for this kind of work. Now they say that diamond, you can win something like factor 17 in sensitivity. I don't know whether it's only for artificial diamond, but properties of diamond are such that it guarantees better performance. Oh yeah, maybe it is too close. Then again, we get a lot of interest from industry and from users. And they say, hey, what you did so far was done with the lasers, with the argon laser. Now, that's quite sizable something. But can you do it maybe with LEDs? And you wouldn't believe it. This is an experiment done with a LED. And I'm not a LED specialist, but one of our students worked with Philips. He gave us one LED that emits at 502 nanometer central wavelength. And it gives something like 160 milliwatts power in front of the exit. But when you couple it to the fiber, it is only 1.5 milliwatt left. And this experiment was done just with 1.5 milliwatts. And believe me, we got the same results as with the laser. I think that's it. That is Mladen's work, but I think we stop here. I mean, I don't get tired so easy. I can go till midnight, but that's not allowed. Huh? Okay, then thank you very much for your attention. I hope that I could make it clear in this 1 hour, or maybe I went a little bit over the time, that the photoacoustics and photothermal methods, these two that I show you, you have an expert in your own house, Mladen, that they are a valuable contribution to already existing arsenal of technique. And what is even more promising is that our techniques, when hyphenated with existing techniques, now Mladen is a world record holder in measuring carotenoids in food. We did it together, and that is also something fantastic. And with the new lasers, and maybe with a small miniature laser that come from China now that emit at 532 nanometer, maybe one can really build up such a system that is portable. This is wishful thinking. Anyway, thank you for your attention, and if I can help you with anything in the future on this kind of work, just contact me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dado, for this introduction to photothermal techniques.
Okay.
Now to break the ice, because we will give our audience a chance to ask you some questions.
Yeah,
since
of course. Can I also sit?
Yes, of course. But just to break the ice, maybe a few questions. It took quite a long time from the discovery of Graham Bell to the invention of lasers was needed to start going faster in this field of techniques. Mm-hmm. What do you think would be the next applications? What are the next challenges in the field of photoacoustic and photothermal spectroscopy?
In Holland, this is the criteria. At this moment, one of the most interesting projects ongoing is to detect, to get information about burns. This, if you work somewhere and you get a steam on your skin, the medical people are always interested to get some estimate about what is. I mean, everybody can see that surface layer is damaged, but for the therapy, it's important what's the situation underneath.
So medical applications,
medical application,
basically.
yeah. And the idea is also, I see this, trend almost everywhere. In 1955, somebody has said that metabolism from the human body, that in the breath of the people, there are markers that you can use as indicators of the potential diseases. You see this Oklahoma stuff in Utrecht together work now on constructions of the monitor for early detection of asthma. And I guess for dermatology it will also.
Then we've seen applications in the field of dentistry, for example, early cancer detection.
Yeah, probably very, very difficult. And of course, there are, with these new detection limits better and better, people come with a new idea. If you only think about our first work on ethylene, I don't know whether you had any picture, but if you take a carnation or an orchid flower, and you cut it, then the flower doesn't like it, and it started to protest. And one of the protests was emission of ethylene. And if you look in the books until 1990, at T0, that's now, I said I take a flower for my wife. The time started to run, and after 3.5 or 4 hours, with gas chromatography, they saw a peak. So everybody was saying, "Oh, this peak has to do something with the injury because you cut the flower," and that was considered as a criteria for something has happened. That was with gas chromatography, but with these photoacoustic monitors, shortly after, it was established that this peak is a tertiary peak. There were two others, see? And one was something like after 2 hours, and another one now after 17 minutes. And who knows? And for people who have more knowledge about biology and plant physiology, they know what to do with this. So I think it will be going better and better and better. Huh?
So Holland was an ideal place for you to start applying your techniques. Was there any other reason why you settled in Holland after so many years?
Wow. First thing, because they have good bicycle roads. You can bike and you can go from north to south without seeing a car, and from east to west, rather you know it. And that was something, and of course the university climate was always very good. This outstanding. This the cooperation between universities was always, everybody wanted that. Now it's a little bit more cautious because of funding restrictions and so on. Still, it's fantastic. And we were always interested, of course, I knew what kind of person I am, and I was always happy that he came to our lab, and not only him, and many others. So we actually, it is a little bit, I don't deserve all this credit that I get. Many people from, we call it East World, but that is wrong, from Middle Europe, from Central Europe, came to Holland, and with their knowledge, like Madens, or our colleagues from Bulgaria, from Romania, from Hungary, they had so much knowledge. And by combining the issues of relevance, I knew more or less good where they are. That is the advantage of Wageningen. If you have ear and you are interesting, there is no way that you are getting boring. It's always something ongoing, either a fish or grass or woods or leaves, but it's always something. And then when people like Mladen and the rest of the company came, there was a time that we had something like 8 or 9 PhDs per year in our lab. Now, no wonder that a lot of things are coming. But it's using his expertise for our purposes. So I can tell you that the reason why I came there at the end, it was you with your thermal lensing and applied to food, when Peter van Bovenkamp was still alive. That was a big boom, huh?
Also for us.
Yeah, but I mean...
Are there any questions from the audience? We have some, let's say, so to say, food specialists, we have analytical chemists, we have spectroscopists.
Yeah.
Franca.
Vida. Shall I tell you something honestly?
Excuse me?
Shall I tell you something very honestly? I was dreaming, my dream was always to produce such a device for the farmers in Africa or somewhere where there's a need. Comes from my, I'm a little bit idealist, eh? You know what that is? Idealist. I was always interested to those who have nothing, make something for them. And I was in Africa a few times, and if you see there's somebody in Burkina Faso, he makes his corn, and at the end of the year, if he wants to sell something, he must go to one office for the whole country. Somebody has HPLC, the question is whether it works, and then somebody told him that, Mr. Last year you had 3 milligram per kilogram total carotenoids, and now you have 2.5. Still not enough, but you have to pay something like 450 euros. And they don't have this money. So my idea was, will the moment come where I can give this to Bill Gates, when they paid for one project that we had, Harvest Plus, that they develop it in large numbers at no profit, no interest for companies, but to help those who have nothing. And but if you ask me, I can tell you how much it costs. The sensor itself is this. Microphones are €2.50. This last one, what I saw, Optotermične window, was €90 5 years ago. And now you need a source. And there are Chinese people here. There are now lasers. Do you have them?
What?
Such a small laser.
Yeah.
Green laser.
Yeah.
You know, it is €9.50, including shipment from Singapore. A registered mail comes on the door. Hello, I'm from Post, TNX. Are you Mr. Bićanić? Yes. For you, how much does it cost? €9. And they have stability of one part in 10 to the 3. So all what you need is a chopper, which can be also done electronically. I think if I would have to do it for somebody, I believe that for, let's say, €400, you would have such a device. And then you need, again, somebody like you who will do one-time HPLC analysis, because one-time calibration is necessary, and the rest not.
Any other questions?
You showed us this HPLC quantification.
Yeah.
Can you do? How can you quantify the gas phase samples? Can you do that at all?
No, this was not done with HPLC.
Can you quantify? How do you quantify the gas phase measurements?
When
When you have the sample is gas.
Sample is gas. You have two situations. Non-gaseous sample, that means, let's say, this is the cell, and cell is sealed, and this inside we have empty, no condensed phase sample. There's only gas. Here comes radiation, gas absorbs, you get expansion, and this you detect. And then you can say, oh, with this gas, it was a nitrogen, for example, which cannot absorb infrared radiation. You get, at this chopping frequency, with that much power, you get that much signal. So this is like a sort of background signal that you always will have. Then you take a sort of calibrated mixture of, if you're interested in ethylene, like 5 ppb ethylene in nitrogen, and then you repeat it on the same conditions, the same power, same chopper, and then you get again more signal, which means now we have this signal minus the background is just a netto.
So basically your quantification is based on calibration of the instrument by known mixtures of gas.
Yeah, I should have said that is my error. Apologize. These methods, Optotermične window and the photoacoustics, are not absolute methods. They are relative. You need one-time calibration. But the big advantage of this method, they are direct. You don't need a conversion and all that mess with toxic chemicals. And they are very accurate. Precision is very high. And they are very rapid because there is no need for preparation whatsoever. That is beauty. But they are not absolute. And that is why everybody asks us, how can you do so many measuring points in one afternoon, but it can.
Okay, thank you, Dado, for your answers, and first of all for the lectures, where you have shown the application of spectroscopy also for food science, food quality control.
I see food coming.
I guess there is some food getting ready there, so let's thank our speaker again.